Well, hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this annual event, the Data Science for the Public Good Symposium. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sally Keller. I'm a distinguished professor of biocomplexity, and I lead the Social and Decision Informatics Division within the Biocomplexity Institute at University of Virginia. And it's my distinct pleasure to have you all here today for this wonderful event. The symposium is a signature event of the Data Science for the Public Good Forum. The forum is a partnership between University of Virginia's Biocomplexity Institute, the School of Data Science, the Darden School of Business, and University of Virginia's Democracy Initiative's Equity Center. The forum, as many of you know, because you've now become regular participants and attendees, it's a collection of distinguished speakers throughout the year and caps off with a symposium. The symposium is very exciting as it highlights research that has been conducted over the summer by Data Science for the Public Good young scholars that are in summer programs across multiple universities. This year that includes Virginia Tech, Virginia State University, and Iowa State University. This is our second year to hold the symposium virtually. Hopefully next year we'll be back in person. I want to give a special thank you to our forum sponsors, WestStat, Avison Young, the Washington Statistical Society, NORC at the University of Chicago, the American Statistical Association, RStudio, and Sage Publishing for their generous and continued support for the Data Science for the Public Good Forum events. Today's event, we will be starting with the keynote speaker, Jerry Mulroy, and then you'll be guided by Aaron Schrader to an energizing virtual poster session to explore the wide breadth of data science for the public good projects conducted this summer through the Young Scholar programs at our universities. Personally, it has been gratifying over the years to watch the expansion of interest and engagement by young scholars, by faculty, staff, local, state, and federal stakeholders who come together to do data science for the public good, and who come together in the forum to discuss doing data science for the public good. Together, we're building capacity for evidence-based policy development and practice across all levels of government and all types of communities, as well as building a new data science savvy workforce ready to bring data in service of the public good. Before I introduce Jerry, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Jerry will be doing a keynote. It'll probably go on for 30 or 40 minutes. During that time, please enter any questions you have in the Q&A box. You should be able to find that somewhere on your Zoom screen. And following her presentation, we'll get through as many of your questions as we have time for. And then around 2 o'clock, Aaron Schrader will share with us the poster session, and following that, you'll get to jump into all the wonderful projects that the student teams have prepared. So now let me introduce our speaker, Jerry Mulroy. Jerry is a vice president and director of statistics and evaluation sciences at WestStat. WestStat is a company that focuses on improving the lives through research. So you could say it's a company that's in the middle of data science for the public good. They're involved in many federal, state, and local foundation studies. And behind the scenes of those studies is Jerry's team of over 80 statisticians. Jerry is an exemplary statistician. She has had a long career and has developed expertise and shared her expertise in sampling and estimation methodologies, survey methodology and design, data quality and process improvement, and data visualization and information dissemination. Before joining WestStat, Jerry worked in federal government in several leadership roles, including the Principal Deputy Director for the Bureau of Justice Statistics in the U.S. Department of Justice and Deputy Division Director for the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics at the National Science Foundation. In these positions, Jerry did more than provide oversight on design, collection, analysis, and dissemination of federal data products. She provided strategic vision for how these organizations can move beyond traditional survey data collections to embracing data science and the new opportunities it affords federal statistics. Jerry is an active member of the American Statistical Association, having served on its board as the vice president, and is also a fellow of the American Statistical Association. She has a bachelor's in mathematics from Montana State University and a master's in statistics from Colorado State University. The title of her talk today is Enabling Data Science to Do Public Good. Are we making an impact? And I'm very anxious to hear how she answers that question. So Jerry, I hand it over to you now.
All right. Thank you, Sally. That was quite a nice introduction. I am really delighted to be here. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be opening up this year's symposium on data science for the public good. Today, I want to link the components that have come together so far to provide the foundations to enable data science to do public good. I want to highlight some critical laws and guidance, talk a bit about the necessary people skills, the emerging technologies and tools, and then potential funding sources. I want to touch on how the work over my 30+ year career has dovetailed with some of these initiatives and point out places where I have been able to contribute. I end with a brief discussion of remaining challenges. But what I'm really looking forward to is the rest of the day after my talk when the real data science show gets on the road. There have been so many interesting projects in the past years, and I am looking forward to seeing this year's projects. So let's get started. Next slide, please. So these are my goals for you today. I hope you have some fun, enjoy the presentations throughout the afternoon. I hope you learn something new and interesting. You might even get to meet some new people or see some old friends, although I know it's harder in this virtual world than in person, and maybe next year. I'd like you to take some time to reflect on the work that is presented here. How can you or how might you use some of the methods? Or think about what problems or big questions you might want to work on, and think about how you might help move these efforts forward. We really need everyone's involvement. And lastly, I ask that you ask questions. Reach out to some of the speakers and get to know them better, especially if you see something interesting in their presentation. Next slide, please. So I thought it would be good just to start out with a couple of definitions so that we are all on the same page. Here's a definition from Wikipedia for data science. I want to highlight that it is an interdisciplinary field. To me, that includes fields like statistics, computer science, systems engineering and architecture, and subject areas, all coming together to extract knowledge and insights from structured and unstructured data. So those last two are key here. And public good is for the benefit or well-being of the public good. Next slide, please. So when I look back on my career, I feel like I've been on a journey to enable data science to do public good. I'm not sure I really fully understood that until Sally asked me to do this presentation, and then I had to think about what I wanted to say. So I actually feel like a founding investor in this program, Data Science for the Public Good, maybe a small-time investor, but I think some of the first projects that the group started working on were ones that I helped lay the groundwork for when I was deputy director at the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics. I had bumped into Sally somewhere, and I can't even remember where, possibly at a joint statistics meeting, and she told me about this new endeavor, and I thought, this is what NCSES should be doing. We should be exploring how to use alternative data sources and new methodologies to augment or supplement our existing survey work. We should be linking data together so we can answer more questions. So I went about trying to figure out how to get some funding to do some demonstration projects, and I was able to do that. So I feel proud to be an initial investor in the DSPG program. My journey feels like a meandering path, which I'll talk about throughout this presentation. One of the consistent things throughout my career, though, and my meandering path, is that I was always curious always wanting to try new things, and always wanting to continue to learn. Next slide, please. So I thought it might be good to give you a little bit of background on me to help set that stage for this meandering path. I was born in Denver, Colorado, and I moved to Helena, Montana after my mom divorced and remarried. So I grew up 20 miles outside of Helena, Montana, learning to ride horses, swim in a lake, and drive a stick shift. Washington, D.C. and the federal government were really far away and not something I thought about at all. So I never even imagined myself doing what I have done. At the time of growing up, I knew I liked math, and my mom was insisting I go to college. So I went to Montana State for my undergraduate degree, and then I decided to go to graduate school in statistics and was accepted to Colorado State in Fort Collins, Colorado. So I attended 2 land-grant universities, Montana State for my undergraduate in math and Colorado State for my master's in statistics. I met my husband, Ed Mulrow. Some of you may know him or even work with him. We met at Colorado State. We then became a 2-body problem, although at that time it was not called that. Throughout our careers, we have worked together to find a balance. Most of the time it was not optimal for either one of us, but it turned out exceptionally well for both of us and way beyond what either of us could have ever imagined as we were growing up. And we've had a great time going along the way, and we're still having fun. Statistics is a lot of fun. We have 2 children who are now grown. I chose to work when the kids were growing up because for me as a statistician, the work was fun, challenging, and rewarding. You can ask my kids who grew up with statistics talk at the dinner table. But today, I want to talk about my experiences at the 3 federal statistical agencies that I worked at here in DC that put me on this journey to enable data science to do public good. I started my DC career at the Statistics of Income Division at the Internal Revenue Service. One of my contemporaries at that time was Barry Johnson, who is now the director of SOI. I was just on a call with Barry and others to talk about the Links Lecture Award. This ASA award honors those who do record linkage type projects or research. I spent the longest portion of my federal career at the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics at the National Science Foundation. One of my contemporaries there was Imelda Rivers, who is now the director of NCSES. I was just on a call with her earlier this week, and she was starting to tell me about her new endeavor, America's Data Hub. I spent the last 3 years of my federal career at the Bureau of Justice Statistics, retiring from federal service in 2019. But I'm not retired from work. I now work at Westat and support projects at these agencies and many others, and I am continuing my journey to enable data science for the public good. So I'll talk about my experiences at these 3 agencies as I go along. Next slide, please. Okay, so back to enabling data science to do public good. Are we there yet? Are we making an impact? Next slide, please. So spoiler alert, no, we are not there yet, but we are making good progress, as you will see if you attend the poster sessions later today. Are we making an impact? Well, I think there are endless possibilities. I feel like we are just getting started, and there are many adventures in the making. The journey has just begun, and it's exciting to see what is just over the horizon. I'm not sure we will ever be there. As researchers are curious people, you know there are endless questions to ask and new things to explore. So I argue that we are at exciting times, and we are making an impact by laying the necessary foundations at the federal level to enable us to do data science for the public good. And this helps demonstrate things at the state and local levels. Next slide, please. So, as I said, over my career, I've seen the fundamentals at the federal level being steadily laid to get us to this point today. The role of the federal statistical system is to collect, analyze, and disseminate policy-relevant, policy-neutral data to inform the public and policymakers on important social measures. The system plays an important role in our democracy by providing information to all of us about the state of our nation. Unfortunately, it has not been easy for the statistical agencies to share their data with each other, and it hasn't been easy for them to gain access to administrative data within even their own departments. We can only answer so many questions using a single data source. Therefore, access to these federal government data and the ability for them to be shared are critical to being able to put together the many data sources needed to do public good. So in the federal arena, there has been much effort in putting necessary laws and guidance in place to allow federal agencies to collect and share this wealth of data and information. The Office of Chief Statistician at the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB as you may know them, has been involved in many of these efforts, and I am grateful for their continued efforts as well as the many others who have helped push these forward. But as we all know, laws and guidance are not enough. People need to have the right skills, so academic institutions are stepping up and teaching data science skills and pushing the methods forward. Such programs as this one at UVA in the Biocomplexity Institute and the Data Science Program and the others that Sally mentioned. They are also demonstrating how this can be done, as you will see later today. Technology and the tools continue to improve. The computing landscape has changed greatly in the last 30 years. I remember having to share an Apple Macintosh when I was at SOI back in the late 80s, early 90s. I actually saw one of them in the Smithsonian several years ago. So that's how technology has changed. And of course, there is a need for funding for these types of projects. So let me talk a little bit more about each of these. Next slide, please. So I will warn you now, I am not a historian, nor am I a lawyer, I'm a statistician. But from my perspective, these laws build on each other and provide a foundation for having quality data, ensuring confidentiality, providing authority to share and link data across different agencies, and codifying the need for evidence-based policymaking. So I want to start with one of my favorites, the Paperwork Reduction Act, or PRA, as it is often referred to. The PRA requires agencies to be thoughtful, purposeful, and careful in the data they collect, and to think about standardization across different data collections. This applies to both survey data and administrative data collections. The 1995 reauthorization of this act gives OMB the responsibility for approving agency information collection requests, including those for surveys and other statistical information. My first exposure to the PRA was at SOI. All IRS forms must go through OMB approval. Maybe I am unusual, but I think that the OMB clearance process is really helpful and important. This process, while sometimes cumbersome, helps benefit our society by, 1, reducing the burden on those who provide data, such as you and me, and 2, ensuring that the collected information is relevant, timely, of sufficient quality, and is fit for intended purposes. So this is no small effort. The next one I want to mention is the Quality Information Act of 2001. This requires agencies to have basic standard of quality for the information they collect, who would think, have quality assurance procedures, and have a process to allow data providers to correct any inaccuracies in their own data. OMB noted at the time, prudent decision-making depends on reliable, high-quality information. I think you will agree. So my first assignment when I joined NCSES and NSF was to help write NSF's quality information guidelines in response to the requirements of the Act. I was on my journey and I didn't even know it then. Another major milestone in putting these foundations together is the Confidential Information Protection and Statistical Efficiency Act, or CIPSE, of 2002. This establishes a uniform confidentiality protections for information collected for statistical purposes by US statistical agencies. And it allows for some limited data sharing between the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Bureau of Economic Analysis, and the Census Bureau. ZIPC was enacted early on in my tenure at NCSES, and it impacted all of our human resources data collections, as well as the process to allow researchers access to our restricted data. So these are important early foundations for starting to enable data science to do public good, ensuring confidentiality and allowing data sharing. So it's starting to build. The next big push, I think, for me at least, comes with the Commission on Evidence-Based Policymaking. The CEP was established by the Bipartisan Evidence-Based Policymaking Commission of 2016, and it was jointly sponsored by then Speaker Paul Ryan and Senator Patty Murray. The act recognizes that better use of existing data may help improve how government programs operate. The mission of the commission was to develop a strategy for increasing the availability and use of data in order to build evidence about government programs while protecting privacy and confidentiality. They issued a final report that provides a framework that laid the groundwork for where we are today. I was honored to be able to present to the commission at one of their first open meetings. I was at BJS at that time, and I was asked to present on the challenges to collecting and using criminal history records, or rap sheets as you might know them, for statistical purposes to study recidivism. There were many challenges to BJS to gain access to these sensitive law enforcement records. These are administrative records, which BJS eventually did. And BJS continues to support improvement in the quality of these records to this day. So you can imagine how important the quality is to this. Then in 2018, the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking, or the Evidence Act, was passed. This act addresses half of the recommendations in the Commission's report. It promotes data accessibility, it requires a common application for researchers, and it establishes a committee to explore a national secure data service. It also enables responsible data use by establishing a chief data officer and having agencies focus on priority policy questions, the data they have and the data they need. It reauthorizes SIPSIA. So these are foundations. But even before some of this legislation was enacted, I had been asked to work on a precursor to the data access issue, which is what the National Secure Data Service is trying to address. In 2016, the Census Bureau's research data centers were rebranded as the Federal Statistical Research Data Center Program. At the time, the FSRDC program included data from the National Center for Health Statistics, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the Census Bureau. So following on this successful but limited partnership, I was tapped by OMB through the Federal Committee on Statistical Methodology to lead an interagency committee to expand the system to include other interested federal statistical agencies. The interagency committee I was leading was tasked to develop a charter to establish an executive committee over the FSRDC system, which would provide strategic guidance and vision, resolve any interagency issues, and provide an executive sponsorship for the program. After several months of discussion and back and forth with various federal statistical agency heads and the Office of Management and Budget, the committee finally developed a draft charter for an interagency committee with shared governance over the FSRDC system. The charter was approved by the Interagency Council on Statistical Policy early in 2018. Following on that work, I was asked to lead a different interagency effort to develop a single one-stop application for researchers to access restricted data in the FSRD system. Data in this system are owned by the different federal agencies. Each agency has their own protocols and confidentiality protections on the data. researchers have to apply to each agency separately, supplying different amounts of information to be able to gain access to the different restricted data sets of interest. Having a one-stop application for researchers became one of the requirements in the Evidence Act, as I just noted. This effort was just getting started when I left federal service and has been picked up by Imelda Rivers at the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics. So I feel like I've had a hand in helping get to this point in time as some of my work dovetailed with these foundational federal laws. Next slide, please. So in addition to the laws, though, I thought it might be helpful to mention some of the White House guidance that has also helped to come out to further lay foundations to where we are today. Over this time, the White House, often through the Office of Management and Budget, included further guidance to agencies that continue to build and strengthen the authority and ability to do data science for the public good, at least at the federal level, thus helping to lead the way for states and local governments. So I've only selected a few to highlight, and there are many, many others, but you will see that this guidance helps to strengthen the foundations to get us to where we are today. So OMB Memo 1406 says, the goal is for both program and statistical agencies to use administrative data in a manner that respects privacy and protects confidentiality. And it also helps program agencies manage their administrative data with statistical purposes in mind. So now there's a linkage between the administrative data and the use of it for statistical purposes. OMB Memo 1515 encourages federal statistical agencies and their parent departments to build interagency collaborations to help the federal statistical community more effectively gain access to these existing administrative records. OMB Memos 1923 and 1920 provide specific guidance necessary to meet specific requirements of the Foundations for the Evidence Act. Next slide, please. Two others, very recent memos that I wanted to note. So it's continuing even to this day. So issued in January of this year was the memo on restoring trust in the government through scientific integrity and evidence-based policymaking. This memo seeks to ensure the highest level integrity in all aspects of executive branch involvement with scientific and technological processes. And it supports evidence-based policymaking. And then in June, on the 30th of this year, OMB released another memo, M2127, continuing to build on the evidence-based making. So the opening paragraph of this memo states, the complex issues and challenges facing the American public must be met with urgency, and doing so requires the facts arrived at through rigorous and systematic analyses governed by principles of scientific integrity. In order to address these issues, it is critical to ensure, protect, and institutionalize the collection, dissemination, and use of high-quality evidence in a way that is informed by diverse viewpoints and methods. So you see, throughout the years, Congress and the White House have been really working hard to lay these foundational laws and guidance to get us to the place where we are today. So I want to give a shout out to the staff at OMB who have been working hard in these areas, including Catherine Wallman, Nancy Potok, and Shelley Martinez, to name a few. Next slide, please. But laws and guidance aren't enough, as we said. We need people who can do the work. They have the technical skills, the data science skills to work with large structured and unstructured data. Fortunately, there are a few programs that are training people these days, such as the one here at the University of Virginia, Biocomplexity Institute, and the Young Scholars Program. So please stay for the sessions following this, where you will actually get to meet some of these young scholars and see the real data science for the public good being done. Next slide. The Coleridge Initiative, led by Julia Lane, is a training program and a prototype for the National Secure Data Service. They work with government agencies to build new technologies to ensure secure access to and sharing of confidential microdata, and they train agency staff in modern data skills. Next slide, please. The McCourt School of Public Policy Massive Data Institute, led by Amy O'Hara and backed by Bob Groves, was designed to increase interdisciplinary public policy research and engage students in projects analyzing big data to inform evidence-based public policy solutions. Next slide, please. And the University of Maryland Joint Program in Survey Methodology with the University of Michigan Program in Survey and Data Science and partnering with WestAT were original leaders in training in survey methods with a focus on federal surveys. Both Maryland and Michigan programs have added data science to the mix. So these are just a few in our immediate area that are helping to train people with the necessary skills. I'm sure there are others that I am missing or not aware of. Next slide, please. So I am not by far not a technology expert. However, even I recognize that the technology and tools have continued to improve and are now able to support computationally intensive work relatively easily. And data science and methods have taken off with these improved technologies and tools. But specific to enabling data science to do public good and use government data while maintaining confidentiality protections are developments in secure cloud computing platforms, secure remote access methods, and security certifications such as FedRAMP. The computing programs and collaboration tools continue to improve and allow for easier documentation, version control, and sharing of work. I'm not going to go into any detail on any of these, as I am sure most of you are more knowledgeable than I am in this. Next slide, please. So we know we can't get this work done without some financial support. The Evidence Act actually supports agencies to use their funding for evidence-based policy, evidence-based decision-making activities, such as data collection, curation, analysis, and evaluation, to name a few. So I hope to see much more federal funding opportunities come out in support of these activities in future cycles. State and local governments have also been funding such activities. For example, I am aware of a few large metropolitan areas funding interesting projects to use data science for the public good. Nonprofits and foundations have been taking a keen interest in societal issues and have also started funding on their own evidence-based decision-making activities, which will open additional doors to enabling data science to do public good. Several associations have been actively voicing their support for such activities, which also generate funding sources through broader awareness and with the potential for additional congressional appropriations. Such agencies such as the Council of Professional Associations for Federal Statistics, or COPAS, the Data Coalition, the American Statistical Association, and the American Educational Research Association, to name a few. And I know there are many more. Next slide, please. So I definitely think we are at an exciting time and we are making an impact. To even get this far is to have an impact. Now things are really poised to take off. So if you are not already on this exciting ride, I hope you will join. If you are on the ride, I hope you are having a great time. More twists and turns to come. More thrills too, as we continue to enable and then do data science for the public good. So I want to do a short recap of my experiences at each of these three previously mentioned federal agencies that have contributed to my journey. I certainly did not do it on my own, and as a famous person once said, it takes a village. So the statistical community, now the statistics and data science community, has been my community over the years, and I am grateful to the many people who have helped me along the way. Next slide, please. So at SOI, I learned a lot about administrative records, about the quality and the need for cleaning and harmonizing the data for statistical purposes. And this still stands today. I learned new statistical methods, at least new methods to me, like record linkage, multiple imputation, and raking ratio estimation. And I learned about survey methodology, all different components of skill sets needed to do public good. I learned about the PRA, and here is a snapshot of the 2020 1040 tax return. Note the OMB number at the top of the form. So I wanted to say thank you to Fritz Schurn for taking a chance on me, the young statistician from 2 Western land-grant universities who had never been to Washington, D.C. before the job interview with SOI. It has been great fun and a thrilling ride so far. And Fritz encouraged me to get involved in the local ASA chapter of the Washington Statistical Society, which was great advice. Not only does WSS provide opportunities to learn new things, it is a great place to meet people from other agencies and organizations and to form collaborations. Next slide, please. At NCSES, I had more great opportunities and experiences to learn and try new things. These included major redesigns of longstanding surveys, data visualization, and taxonomy work, to name a few. So I wanted to thank Linda Carlson for nominating me to the Federal Committee on Statistical Methodology, setting up many opportunities to collaborate with OMB's Office of the Chief Statistician, and for encouraging engagement in professional activities. I became a fellow of the American Statistical Association during my time at NCSES, and I served on the board of the American Statistical Association twice during that time, first as the Council of Sections Governing Board representative, and then as a vice president. Both times were great, and I met many professional colleagues and continued to learn about the new developments in statistics, methodology, and data science. Next slide, please. So while I continued my journey at BJS, it was also like going full circle back to my childhood roots. So let me see if I can explain. Both of my parents were in social services. My dad was the director of the local welfare department, and my mother was a probation officer. They would come home with what I called messy people stories. Messy stories about people, stories about things like child neglect or abuse, struggles of people on probation or parole, hunger and housing needs, and other challenges faced by people in need or dealing with the criminal justice system. I think those stories were one of the reasons why I went into math. Math was always neat and clean. 2 + 2 was always 4. But I moved a bit away from math and its set structure into statistics at graduate school. And statistics has been a very happy place for me. But statistics is not black and white. It has a lot of grayness in it. There is also structure underneath with theory and a good amount of formulas. But we live with uncertainty in our measures, in our data, in our estimates. So in statistics, there is some order and some messiness. At BJS, there is plenty of statistical work, and it is dealing with what I call messy people issues. There are many interesting statistical challenges at BJS and so much potential for their data, as you can imagine. There is so much for them to contribute to the evidence-based policymaking efforts. I could talk a long time about BJS, but that would be a digression. I want to thank the BJS staff for welcoming me to the agency and for helping me learn about the many exciting challenges they face. So I am both humbled and amazed by having the opportunities over my career to contribute to activities to get us to this very exciting time on being the cusp of really doing data science for the public good. I plan to continue my journey and to contribute going forward in my role at WestStat, where I'm continuing to build and strengthen our data science and statistical expertise to support such projects. The next slide, please. So, as I said, we are not there yet, but yes, we are making an impact. But we still have some challenges ahead. First, there have been quite a few efforts surrounding data security, data access, and privacy protections, but the work is not done in these areas. We all know we need to remain vigilant on data security. We need to continue to evolve. As more and more data sources are linked and new computational methods are applied, the risk of potential harm increases as well as the potential for public good. We need new laws around privacy and protection. Who should be held responsible for the use of sensitive data? The data collector or the data provider? Or both? For now, the onus is on the data collector to keep the data safe and protected, but shouldn't it also be on the data user? Malicious use should not be accepted. We need to address the ethics of certain methods and analyses. Just because we can does not always mean we should. This is an area that has not been addressed much until recently, and I am happy to hear the conversation starting around ethics. I just saw that Stephanie Shipp sent out a note saying the revised ASA ethical guidelines for statistical practice are out, and there will be a session at JSM on Thursday to discuss these changes. We need sustained leadership and vision. We need leaders in our government, in our academic institutions, and in private and nonprofit organizations to lead these efforts. The focus needs to be sustained for our nation to be able to fully use data science for the public good. And we need to develop more collaborations and partnerships between private and public entities. There is so much to be done in this realm that we need efforts from all different types of organizations to succeed. So all of us can and should work to help address these various challenges and continue to move us forward. I would really be interested to hear what you think are the challenges. So I will wrap up now. Next slide, please. So thank you for going on this journey with me today. I hope you're excited for the future and that you will contribute to these efforts, no matter where you sit or what level you are, because you can make an impact. I look forward to questions. Thank you.
Jerry, thank you so much. That was wonderful. And as you might guess, we have some questions. So I'm going to start with some questions that kind of go back to the foundation that you laid about the OMB memos. And the question is, how do OMB memos get written? Who picks the topics? Who contributes ideas in text? And what legal authority do they have?
OMB often will listen to public forums and solicit public opinion on the items that need to be worked on. They also advertise through publicly about the types of things that they're working on. So input can be provided by the public to the Office of Management and Budget through their public openings. So they will solicit openings for people to provide comments to them. They also talk to, they hold a variety of stakeholder meetings through the National Academies of Science or through the federal agencies. So there's a variety of ways that they can solicit that information from the public, and they do want to hear from the public. The authority for the Office of Management and Budget is through the White House, and that is guidance to the federal agencies. So that guidance applies to federal agencies, which helps to set the groundwork for then how other entities can provide a framework. So Sally, was there another part to that question?
Let me look. So who picks the topics, who contributes ideas, and what legal authority do they have?
So I think I addressed that.
Then connected to that is another question. Is there a public tool where the OMB approval number for a given form can be resolved to provide information about the approval process?
I'm not quite sure what that question is asking.
So I think it's how I'm reading this is, how do you find out what that approval process was and how it was vetted?
So yes, there is a link. Oh my goodness! Now you're asking me to remember what the link is. I have to think about that. But all of the requests through the PRA, that is public information. There is a site, and I'll have to look that up and get that back to you, that you can look up any agency and look up the OMB number, and you can get all of the supporting documentation that is public through that filing that the agency has to do in order to do that data collection.
Okay, thank you. So let's turn now to, whoops, hold on a second. Just lost it for a second. Let's turn over to a data science for the public good question. So, you know, if you're not quite at the stage where we've achieved data science, if we're not quite at the stage where we've achieved data science for the public good, what does that ideal state look like? Is it a single national PI protected data commons of some kind, perhaps with differential levels of access for the public, researchers, federal agencies, etc.? And then there's a follow-up.
I think there are probably many different models that can actually work here, but I think the keys are protecting privacy and confidentiality, and doing it in a platform that allows people to put the necessary data pieces together to be able to do the analyses that are needed, but yet still provides that confidential privacy protection. And this is why I think it's important that there be some discussion about the laws around privacy and confidentiality, because right now the onus is all on the people who collect the data, and it's not placed on the data users. So there are penalties, federal penalties on federal employees if they disclose any type of information, or if there's a breach of information under their watch. But there right now are not a lot of penalties or any sort of things that happen to data users who maliciously use the data. And so I think there needs to be some discussion around this. I just don't think that people who gain access to the restricted data ought to be allowed to do malicious things with it. The owners has to be a two-way street here. And that's part of the problem now that it's only on the agencies who collect it, because now there's this whole discussion about differential privacy and restricted data access and who can get access, and it causes quite a lot of restrictions on allowing the public and researchers to actually put together the data that are needed to answer some of these big questions in a way that makes it easy.
So Jerry, a follow-up to that that's actually come in from multiple directions now is that public good is often approached from a federal level, but what role can federal, state, local governments play in lowering the barriers to big data analysis for small businesses and nonprofits to better cultivate strong local communities?
Yeah, I think this is, I mentioned this, I think we need a lot more public-private collaborations and ways that we're all working together. I know the federal agency relies a lot on state level data and local level data, and I know that the local agencies want to use their own data to be able to talk about things. Again, it's about responsible use and about being able to gain access to this in a way. So these pieces are coming together. We're not quite all there yet. There's a lot of work on these platforms that allow a space, a private space, to be able to put the data together so that people who are collaborating can work in that space, yet protect the privacy and confidentiality of the individual microdata. So I think we still have work to do in that area. So there's various different initiatives that are going on. So I talked a little bit about the Coleridge Initiative. That's one aspect of it. The America's Data Hub is one at the federal level that is being put together. So I don't think we're there yet, but we have demonstration projects that are getting us there.
Excellent. And still somewhat related to both the OMB questions and the access questions. Does the Evidence Act require federal program agencies to make data available to support research on program impacts consistent with protecting confidentiality of individual program beneficiaries and individual businesses? If so, what's the process to ensure that this requirement is being met?
What is the process to ensure that this requirement is? So yes, and this is where, again, there is, the federal agencies have data that can be used. Sometimes they don't even know how to use it themselves or put it together themselves. The Federal Statistical Research Data System is one way of trying to put these data together, and it's restricted access. So the piece of it that allows sort of responsibility or responsible use for this information is that restricted data access or licensing that occurs. That is also a barrier, though, to allowing researchers to actually get into and being able to use it. So we're not there, but we're getting there. We're starting to lay the groundwork for it. I think there's still some more laws that are needed to get in place, and there's still more technology that needs to come into place. And we need people to start talking about these things and bringing their ideas so that we can really move it forward.
And connected to that, I mean, I think you've partially answered this, but what is required of statistical agencies by the Evidence Act to allow linking statistical data to program data for impact research?
So what are the requirements for that?
Yeah, well, are there requirements for it, basically? I mean,
well, that's what the Evidence Act is starting to put together. So the first part of the Evidence Act is about learning agendas, and the learning agendas are about what are the big questions that the agencies are supposed to be answering in terms of their overview, of the societal pieces that they are overseeing. And as part of that, there's a data inventory of what data exist and then what data are needed. And then how do we put those data together to start answering those big questions? So there is that piece of it, and that part of it is publicly available. The agencies have to put out what their learning agendas are and what their big questions are, what their data is. Now the requirement, getting access to those data, again, for public researchers is difficult sometimes because you still have to go through the restricted data access requirements. Sometimes the administrative data is very hard to get access to. The statistical information, the federal statistical agencies, they have a requirement to put out public use data or provide restricted access data.
Thank you. And then here's another one. I agree wholeheartedly about the shared privacy responsibilities. Would you consider involving a legal structure to data sharing use, working with FBI, CIA, state cyber units, for example, to help establish some statutes consequences for misuse, malicious use of data?
Well, like I said, I think that there needs to be some sort of legislation and some additional work on the privacy and confidentiality and how can we and should we. And again, I think this is where ethics also comes in. We need to be having a discussion about things. Just because we can do certain things, should we be doing certain things, and what are those parameters around that? So those conversations absolutely need to be had. So please start, please start having them.
Okay, so here's a question that's sort of related to the fact that, different levels of government, local levels of government, they're at all different levels in terms of their access to their own data. Sometimes it could be handwritten files in a folder to a lot more sophisticated things. So what measures do you think could be implemented, or maybe it's what things could be implemented by government at local levels to really help them get more immersed with the ability to engage with data science?
This was one of the challenges that we were, a similar challenge, I should say, that we were working on when I was at the Bureau of Justice Statistics. I mean, it is very true that local agencies hold a lot of information, and they have varying levels of technology, levels of tools, levels of people skills. And so two of the barriers that we really heard most was, one is they don't have the technology that they need to be able to collect standardized types of data and put it into a format that can be used for statistical purposes. And two, they don't have the people with the skills that can help them do that. So funding is an issue for local entities to be able to standardize and collect good information. I mean, we all think that there's a lot of data that exists, but a lot of it does need to be standardized and harmonized to be able to actually make sense of it when we start to put these pieces together. And even within an own data set, we know that a lot of cleaning has to go on oftentimes to be able to use it for statistical purposes. So it takes a lot of effort. It's not free, even if the data already exists. We have to worry about a lot of things.
Thank you, Jerry. And so now we're going to turn to you a little bit. What made you passionate and to build a career around statistics as opposed to other branches of mathematics?
Well, I guess what interested me in statistics initially was that I realized through the different methods that these methods I could work with people in all different disciplinary fields. So if I was interested in working with somebody who was doing biology, or somebody who was doing social science, or somebody who was doing geology, that my fundamental statistical skills would allow me to sort of play in everybody's sandbox. So that really appealed to me. That appealed to the curiosity side of me, and that, okay, well, so if I got tired of a field over here, I could always use my statistical skills and go over here and play over here. So that was what drew me to statistics outside of math, I think. Math, I had, I guess, a little bit more of a straight path on it, and statistics seemed like it was a little bit more of a free-wielding kind of opportunity.
And so let's see here. So I think we're going to close out with one last question. And it's, what's the biggest challenge you faced in your federal statistical career?
Oh, the biggest challenge I faced. Wow, that's a good one. I would say that, okay, so this is probably going to be like a cop-out, right? Because I'm going to say it glibly, but it's not. So it's bureaucracy, basically. I mean, so I think one of the things that I found in my career was that I had to be sort of resourceful. So, you try to go down one path, and somebody would say, no, I don't think that's quite right. So then you try to go down a different path, and you try to figure out, can I get them to open a door over here, and try to, work around. So I think it's not a single challenge, but it's really a challenge in trying to figure out how to move things forward when you end up with different roadblocks. And I think part of that is really building collaborations among the people that you need, and getting everyone on the same page and agreeing that we need to be moving forward in this direction. And that can take some time and some energy and some outside help sometimes to get those pieces together and get them moving. So it's not a single challenge, because I think I faced that in several different places.
Well, I have watched you navigate that terrain in incredible ways through your career. So thank you for that. And thank you for the talk today. And so let's all give her a hand.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jerry. And we look forward to seeing you in the poster sessions. So I'm sorry that we didn't quite get to everyone's questions, but we do need to move on to the next phase of our program. And again, I thank Jerry very much for her enlightening talk. What we're going to do next is to give you a little bit of a prelude to the poster session that's coming up. I'm going to turn it over to Erin Schrader in just a moment to talk about this year's program. But before I do that, I wanted to just say a few words about the data science for the public good young scholars program and programs now, as there are many represented here today, and there are others across the country, and to just sort of tell you why, or at least from my perspective, how and why they got started. So as many of us started to engage in data science for the public good and working with local communities, with state and federal agencies, NGOs, different kinds of organizations, what we recognized is that we were developing an appetite for individuals that had data science skills and had a strong interest in policy and in the public good and in civic engagement. And it also struck us that all of a sudden we were going to be competing, as we developed these students and as we developed these young scholars, with all of the other areas in industry and the like that want individuals with these data savvy skills and know-how. So we asked ourselves the question, how can we begin to build a pipeline of scholars that will have some interest in dedicating part of their career to civic engagement around data, statistics, data science type engagement, building data impacts, driving towards evidence-based policy development and practice. And that's how the Data Science for the Public Good Young Scholars program was born. We thought that if we could bring in young scholars and actually engage them hand in hand with stakeholders who have issues that they're trying to address, that we think we can actually couch in a data context and build data insights to help them understand and help drive their policy and practice decisions from this evidence-based foundation, that they will be so excited about how powerful that is to actually make the differences locally. And, you know, again, with the people who own the problem. So we like to call them other people's problems. So we started this program about 6 years ago. We had the great opportunity last year. How many years ago, Aaron? 8 years ago? 8 years ago. Wow, time flies. We had the great opportunity last year in particular to help launch programs at Virginia Tech, Virginia State, Iowa State, and Oregon State University. And we're very excited that some of those universities are back with us today. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Aaron Schrader, who is a research associate professor in the Social and Decision Analytics Division here at the Biocomplexity Institute at UVA. He is also the co-director of the Data Science for the Public Good Young Scholars program, and he's going to take it over from here. Thank you, Aaron.
Sure, thanks, Sally. Can you hear me just fine?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Aaron Schrader. I'm one of the two co-directors of the UVA DSPG Young Scholars Program, along with Kazem Korkmaz. This year, more than 35 undergraduates and graduate students from 5 programs at 4 partner universities, actually 2 at UVA now, were involved virtually with postdoctoral fellows and faculty members in summer projects to try and address critical social needs. In addition to that, we've expanded internationally, where we have programs going in Istanbul and Ankara right now for them to gain practical research experience and skills to provide them with more career opportunities. For us at the UVA Biocomplexity Institute, so saying this is our, depending how you count, this is our 8th year that we've been running the DSPG program. 4 of those years at UVA, 4 of them at Virginia Tech, 2 of them virtually these last 2 years. It can be difficult, but as much as an administrative chore it might seem at times, every year we get reminded just how rewarding it is to have the opportunity to work with some of the best students around the country on topics that can have a real impact on people's lives. Right? This year is no exception. This year we again had representation from sea to shining sea. From the East Coast with UVA, Georgetown, Washington and Lee, Pittsburgh, and Clemson, to the Midwest with the University of Minnesota and the Washington University of St. Louis, to the mountains and Colorado Boulder, to the West Coast of Claremont Graduate University. For disciplines, we once again have a terrifically wide representation, including economics, sociology, statistics, biostatistics, data science, public policy, political science, psychology, anthropology for the first time, and computer science. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this cohort has been the highest skilled cohort we've had to date. And I'm very happy to say these skills have now become more pronounced across applicants from all social and behavioral disciplines, as well as the traditional statistical and mathematical disciplines. Because of this, this cohort of DSPG Young Scholars was able to really hit the ground running on many of our projects and really got quite a bit done in such a limited period of time. As far as the projects go, we had a few that were continuations of multi-year projects and others that are new. And I'd like to give a brief 2-sentence description of our 7 projects. When this program is done in person, students actually get a chance to do what we call a lightning round and do this themselves. But I'd like to give you a little bit of taste of what's out there and hopefully entreat you to come and look at some of the poster sessions. So we had, for our projects, I can start with fostering data reuse by measuring the usability of publicly accessible research data. The team investigated how to make research data publicly available in a manner that most effectively promotes data reuse. By analyzing the most popular data repositories, as well as those repositories, trying to establish new standards for data sharing. This team, working with the National Science Foundation, is a primary stakeholder. And that's something every one of our projects, we try and make sure there's a primary stakeholder for the students to be working, aiming their efforts at. They set out to discover the best ways to both prepare data for reuse and the best methods to host that data. In the implementing text-based AIs to investigate and measure private sector software innovation, we worked with the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics, NCSES, as the primary stakeholder, as this team used the latest in text-based classification models, bidirectional encoder representation from transformers, or BERT, neural networks, to discover where and how much innovation is occurring across the software sector. For the manpower planning using skilled data, that team worked with the U.S. Army Research Institute as its primary stakeholder and began developing a method to help Army veterans map the skills gained in service, the skills required by non-military employers. And we talk about a project where you're having potentially direct impact on people's lives, right? They did this by utilizing a unique crosswalk between Army Military Occupation Specialty Codes, what they call MOS codes, and the U.S. Standard Occupation Classification Codes, SOC codes. Continuing on in the classifying and measuring open source software projects on GitHub. This is a project we've had going for multiple years, actually with NCSES, to discover and quantify the massive economic impact that open source software movement has had. This summer's project worked to advance this work by figuring out how to use probabilistic matching, both dictionary and unsupervised computational text analysis, to categorize different types of software to help figure out how those different software types may impact the economic evaluations. Next, we have the R&D text corpora filtering and data mining. In this project, also working with NCSES as the primary stakeholder, they set about to creating advanced topic models to discover AI research trends that have been federally funded. All right. To do so, they analyzed the Federal Reporter, which is a database of federally funded research grants. And they utilized a number of methods, including probabilistic term matching, a brand new method that uses term matching and topic modeling together, a specialized version of BERT called sentence BERT, and non-negative matrix factorization, NMF topic modeling. This project had lots of cool, fancy methodology words, so you know it's cool and it's good. Definitely visit that one. Continuing on, we have a racial equity case study of the provision of parks and other amenities in Arlington County. This team, they worked with, right here where we are with Arlington County as the primary stakeholder. examining the provision of parks and their amenities from a racial equity lens. They combine data from the American Community Survey, Arlington Open Data Portal, and proprietary real estate database, as well as data that they were scraping themselves, and used it to characterize the extent to which Arlington County is providing services that align with various communities' needs and desires. They also considered other factors that may influence one's needs for certain amenities, such as car ownership, whether or not you have kids, and the type of housing. Using their findings, they calculated and mapped a set of what are called isochrones to show how long residents of each neighborhood must travel to get to various parks and access certain amenities. If you haven't seen how cool isochrone maps are, don't miss this presentation. Very cool. And lastly, we have what are the certifications that lead to a job in the skilled technical workforce. This is also a multi-year project we've been working on. This project studied the non-degree credentials needed for a job in the skilled technical workforce. Despite the rapid growth of this workforce, there's really massive data gaps between skilled technical workforce players, namely federal and state governments, employers, and the educational institutions that actually provide the non-degree credential training. So working with the NCSES again as a primary stakeholder, this team collected certification associated with 133 different skilled technical workforce occupations, used natural language processing techniques to standardize the job ad certifications, using certification names from the Department of Labor's Occupational Information Network, or ONET. And then they used network analysis to visualize the connections between occupations and certifications, highlighting paths that workers could potentially take pursuing their skilled technical workforce career. Again, what a potential for having a direct impact on people. In this project, the network graphs that were created are some of the, I would say, coolest DSPG project graphics we've created to date, maybe even cooler than isochrones, but I definitely encourage you to visit their session. So that summarizes the University of Virginia Biocomplexity Institute's students and their 7 projects this summer. Altogether, there were 23 there are 23 poster sessions today, representing the efforts of those 5 programs and 4 universities. It all starts at 2:30, and you should have received a document with the links to each of those. If not, it's at datascienceforthepublicgood.org. Yes, that's all one word, datascienceforthepublicgood.org. Okay, having done this summary, I will turn it over to one of our newest great partners in the Data Science for Public Good program, actually the Data Science School at UVA.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia Schultz, and I'm here to welcome you on behalf of the University of Virginia's School of Data Science. Our school was established in September 2019 with a substantial gift from the Quantitative Foundation. That's when the school emerged out of what had been the Data Science Institute. The most exciting news in our school is that we have submitted to the State Board of Higher Education for Virginia a proposal to begin to award PhDs in data science. SHEV is going to consider that application in October, so all of the interns who are considering a PhD in data science, look for our announcement in November or December inviting applicants for our new PhD program. The School of Data Science conceptualizes this field as only existing in its application. So data science is an applied science, which is why experiential and project-based learning is central to how we teach data science and how we train future data analysts. All of our students complete data consulting projects for companies, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations, and many of these fall into the framework of data science for the public good. This summer, with support from corporate partners Deloitte and Oracle, we supported 5 undergraduate student interns from UVA, Howard University, and Spelman College. These students were granted access to hundreds of thousands of electronic health records through the National COVID Cohort Collaborative, that's a mouthful, N3C, of which UVA and UVI Health System, through our NIH-funded iThrive program, is a member. Using this wealth of data, the students examined COVID comorbidities and treatment paths to understand disparities resulting from race, class, and gender biases in patient care. The students gave a presentation to the corporate sponsors yesterday, and it was extremely well received. Everyone was floored with their talent, skill, and their discovery. So I'm hoping you will stop by their Zoom room to meet them and learn about their findings this afternoon. And with that, I pass the mic to my colleague, Dr. Omar Faizan at Virginia State University.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Omar Faizan. I'm here with Virginia State University. As was just mentioned, we partnered in particular with Virginia Tech for our students. So we had 5 students, 4 undergrads and 1 master's student, as well as 4 faculty members in addition to myself that were here to support them. Our students worked on projects both with Virginia Tech as well as a local project. Our local projects, we had 2 of those. One that was focused on equitable access to Chesterfield Park, so a lot in the vein of what you heard Dr. Schroeder talk about with the UVA students. And we had a second project that was local that focused on unemployment in the city of Hopewell and Prince George County, which are very local to us here at Virginia State. Hopefully you guys will check out their posters this afternoon and get a little bit more on their findings. And now I will hand off to Dr. Susan Chin at Virginia Tech.
Thank you very much, Omar. I'm the program director for the Data Science for the Public Good program here at VT, and also an associate professor in the Department of Ag and Applied Economics. Our program is very young, and we have been very fortunate to partner with both VSU and University of Virginia. And University of Virginia SDAD has been generous in sharing their knowledge and experience and teaching us basically how to DSPG. And we're very grateful for that support. Over the last 2 years, Gizem, Aaron, and Devika have provided invaluable advice, coordination, and logistical support, and we're extremely grateful. This year, the VT Young Scholars Program was funded by the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences here at Virginia Tech and the Fralin Life Sciences Institute here at Virginia Tech. We had a close collaboration with VSU, as Omar mentioned, and so we had in all 16 students participating in our program. We had 11 undergrads and we had 5 graduate fellows. We had many committed faculty from Ag and Applied Economics and also Ag Leadership and Community Education, who did a phenomenal job at leading our projects. The VT Young Scholars Program has 7 projects this year, with the coordinated effort of Mike Lambert of Virginia Tech and Virginia Cooperative Extension. We sourced 4 of these projects from Virginia Cooperative Extension professionals whose stakeholders put forward some of the most pressing problems facing their communities. For Loudoun County, one of the teams this year provided information on service provision for vulnerable transition-aged youth. And we invite you to see their wonderful dashboard where they fill in some of these service gaps that do not exist in the public domain. For Hampton Roads, the team provided information on tracking indicators of the economic and social mobility of the Black community in Hampton Roads. And we invite you to see this dashboard as well. For Floyd County, the team examined different aspects of water management and industry and residential growth in their county. For Rappahannock County, we studied availability of services, looking at the evolving demographics, the changes in housing and traffic patterns. And once again, we were rocking those isochrones that Aaron talked about as well. So if you want to see some pretty interesting interactive isochrones, Rappahannock is the one for you. We also developed 3 other projects. Two were that were of strategic importance to the College of Ag and Life Science, or the Fralin Life Sciences Institute. These were exploring the skill content of jobs in Appalachia. And the second was analyzing vegetative health using Landsat 8 satellite imagery. Another really cool projects, come see them please. And this year we welcomed our first international project in collaboration with the Zimbabwe National Statistical Agency and the World Bank, using Pisces data to visualize district level multidimensional poverty in Zimbabwe. So I would like to thank, first of all, our stakeholders for trusting us with their projects, because it takes some amount of trust to allow us to do these with you, and for taking the time to provide feedback on the students' work. We're gratefully appreciative. The interns, fellows, and faculty have worked hard on the 7 summer projects. So please come and see what our dedicated teams have accomplished in this poster session, or browse our websites. We have links to our interactive dashboards where you can also view our results. So come see us. You'll have a lot of fun. And with that, I turn it over to my colleague at Iowa State, I think.
Thanks, Susan. I'm Heike Hoffman. I'm Professor of Statistics at Iowa State, and I'm this year's faculty lead of the Young Scholar Program at Iowa State. This is our 2nd year, and we've had a huge number of applicants. We were really lucky in our choice of undergraduates. Between our 9 undergraduates, we're spanning at least 12 different majors. So we've got a lot of double and triple majors in data science, statistics, math, sociology, economics, a lot of variety there. So those 9 undergraduates were joined by 4 graduate student fellows, some graduate students helping out with R, and then we also had 5 faculty leads and quite a few faculty advisors. We've got 6 projects this year at Iowa State. 2 of the projects were sponsored by the Iowa Department of Human Rights. The project Just the Facts, Educational Attainment, investigates into educational paths for women and minorities. And the project Just the Facts, Economics and Workforce Development investigates a similar area, but focuses on employment and earning opportunities and how those differently impact communities, underrepresented communities, such as racial and ethnic minorities, women, and individuals with disabilities. Our 3rd project is called Early Childhood Iowa. The purpose of that project is to integrate up-to-date information from different sources into an interactive dashboard, together with the I2D2 initiative. I2D2 is an initiative to get from data to educational insights, actionable insights, to support Iowa children and their families. Eat Greater Des Moines is not a rally challenge. Actually, it's an initiative to take food donations to food pantries, schools, nonprofits, and other locations in need. And our team provided access to real-time data to decision makers, so that decision makers can see the current state of the food rescue effort and can make decisions such as direct donations to whoever benefits the most from a current effort. The project Smart Shrinkage deals with the fact that Iowa's communities see a lot of population loss for decades now. Luckily, that population loss is not always associated with a loss in quality of life. So that team is investigating factors that might impact quality of life. And we've created a dashboard. The last project that we're dealing with is one in partnership with UVA on assessing the impact of publicly accessible research data. Aaron has already mentioned some of it, and that project is really at the heart of data science data. So this project investigates publicly available data and what factors determine the success of a particular repository. So really at the heart of data science itself. All of our presentations are available through the Zoom links. Please say hello to our young scholars. And I hope I can see some of you in the Zoom rooms.
Terrific. Thank you, everybody. Well, Sally, I think that's it for our overviews. We're about ready to send everybody off to the Zoom rooms.
Yes. So thank you, Aaron, and thank you, thank all of you, Heike, Susan, Omar, Claudia, for these wonderful intros to the projects. And I just want to highlight what you've heard from all of the DSPG program leads, that again, these are projects that were developed collaboratively with stakeholders, with sponsors. And so they're really tightly tied to real issues that the different folks are concerned about, and the students and the whole project team, faculty and staff, have gotten to engage on that. And that's what makes this sort of a unique experience over other sort of summer research experience that students might have. So with that, I do want to turn you all loose. I want to mention something that's been going on in the chat, is that there is a lobby Zoom room. So if you just want to take a break, click on the lobby Zoom room, and there might be other folks in there you can chat to, or if you're lost, click on the lobby Zoom room and somebody there will direct you to where you'd like to go. So with that, thank you all and have a fabulous afternoon.